Okay, I am time stamping this at 3:34. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are joining the Ressio Best Practices Mason AIs, our another series of our customer success office hours. Um, so, so what's Mason AI best practices? So today we're going to be going through where to find Mason, what Mason is best at, show about 5 to 7 real construction workflows. We would love for you all to try 1 to 2 actions live on your own in your own projects because everyone's data is different. Everyone has different estimates, everyone has different workflows. So we want you guys to use your data. Your data is going to give you the best results. If questions pop up, please feel free to add them into the question and answer section anytime. You'll find it at the bottom and it says Q&A. Um, we'll be monitoring the question and answer section, and we will, do our best to get to everything. And then if we don't, we will make sure to share it with your customer success manager or coach. There are also, and just to be clear, there will be some updates in our Ask Me Anything in the roadmap that Mitch will be sharing the second week of June. Details will be shared soon in our events section of the community forum. So just keep an eye on that. And again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And now I'm going to introduce you to our hosts. We have, if you don't know who I am, I'm Marie. I'm wearing a hat today. So, Director of Community and Learning. You've probably heard my voice on YouTube. You'll find me in the community, lurking in the community forum. And then we have Kaitlin, who's many people know and love Kaitlin, our CS coach. And then we have Brian Helmick, and he's a CS coach as well. And we also are so glad that I'm grateful that I have Brian and Kaitlin joining to walk you guys through Mason AI. So I'm going to hand it over to Brian, and I'm going to stop sharing so you can share, Brian.
All right, let me steal that screen share really quick. Ooh, close that out. Share my screen. All right, just want to make sure everybody can see my screen. Everything's coming through correct. Look good?
Yep, you're good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, same slide. Thank you for that warm welcome, Marie. Again, everybody, thank you to Kaitlin for jumping in and answering our questions. As we're going through the presentation, like Marie mentioned, jump down to that Q&A section, pop your questions in there. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the presentation as well, where we'll be going through some of the questions that are more popular, making sure that we can show you those sorts of things live too. Like Marie said, if you do have your Ressio window open, as we're testing things out, go ahead and try a few prompts into Mason. Just get familiarized with it. But you might want to know first, getting to Mason. Where are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? Where do we have access to Mason? So number one, on the desktop, you have your Ask Mason button right underneath the Ressio logo on your main navigation panel on the left side of your screen. Very easy to find. When you click Mason to open up, he opens up a drawer where you'll have an area to type out your information down at the bottom. You've got a couple of things where you can ask Mason. These are all little links there you see on the picture in the middle. So you can ask him to create to-do lists and help you out with these things. Mason's already got some tools in there to kind of make sure that you can find your way around and get used to working with your AI project manager. On the mobile side, you actually have an icon in the top right. So Mason's available for all of your field users, for everybody who's working with the mobile app. That icon kind of looks like a little robot hanging out up there. So you can click on that icon. You can see it in that top right corner. You got a big red box around it. And that's how you'll be able to jump in and get access to Mason, start working with it. Little bit of stuff that you can do with them. So let's talk about the anatomy. You can type in your question, your statement, your response in the text box and just send that over to Mason, have a conversation with them. A lot of you guys have already used an AI chatbot. It's going to work basically the same for you here, except he's plugged into all of your Ressio data. Your microphone button, you can press that button and do talk to text. So if you have a microphone on your PC, works fine there. Everybody's got a mobile device with a microphone on it, probably in their pocket right now, works there as well. So if you're just going to walk through the site and read out or just speak out a little bit of information to Mason, he can capture all that for you. You got a send button to send that information over to Mason. Pretty simple. And the clock is your history. There's a little icon down here at the bottom. We've got a couple icons. There's a setting. The main one that you're probably going to need, though, is your history so that you can go back and review any conversations that you had with Mason. Moving on, let us know if you guys have any questions about that by jumping into the Q&A section. But what are you going to get? Who is Mason for? What are we doing with this, right? Well, Mason's for all the builders, PMs, supers, office admins, bookkeepers. All users can benefit from utilizing Mason. Your project managers, they can speak information into Mason and get Mason to make real to-do lists for them. We're going to show you all of that in a little bit. By the end of the session, you're going to be able to pull project info instantly. You're going to be able to turn messy requests into clear to-dos and checklists, find schedules, approval, budget, and estimate answers without digging through every page on Ressio. We can just go to Mason, queue them up with what we need, give it a few seconds, and have them spit it back out. So the impact, that's going from 5 tabs and 10 clicks to move around and look at the information you need to putting in one prompt and giving Mason 30 seconds or so to find that information for you. Slide's a little stuck. There we go. Woo, got a little fast in there. If you are sensitive to quick moving slides, please close your eyes for just a moment. There we go. All right, so what can Mason do for us? Well, he is, like I said, your AI project assistant. So he can get you project status answers on demand. So what's next? What's blocking? What's overdue? What changed recently? He can take a look at some of the change and approval visibility. Do we have purchase orders that haven't been approved by their vendors? Has the proposal been signed by the customer? Well, we need to get this information pretty quickly so that we know where we're going to be moving to next, what tasks are left up in the air. And for the estimate, for the budget, for the cost items, you can summarize a category, get the cost drivers, what moved, where there's risk at some of these areas. Scheduling lookup, we can see what's coming up next. We can check the dependencies. We can assign, or we can see who's assigned to those and where we're losing time. Daily logs, we can also summarize a date range, extract exact information from those daily logs, draft up customer safe updates for those logs. Lots of things that we can do on there. We can take messy notes and turn that into execution. You can take your notes, paste those into Mason, tell Mason to pull out all the to-dos from those notes so that you have something to work with afterwards, a list of everything, all your action items that you need to follow up on. You can use Mason to draft messages. Sometimes we know what we want to say, but we don't know how we want to say it. And we can ask Mason to get us some really nice client-facing or vendor-facing message explaining exactly what we need. Sometimes when we're a little too busy or frustrated to be able to jump in and get that configured for ourselves. A little bit on what Mason's not for. So right now he's not really suitable for decisions like a project manager or anything like that. I wouldn't jump in. I would trust your own judgment on this. Mason's here to give you the information so that you make informed decisions. Okay. He won't guess when data's missing as well. He's going to ask you for clarifying questions. So he's not going to jump in there and start pulling in, answers that we never looked for. For text-based actions like messages, to-dos, daily logs, Mason asks for this confirmation first before he sets anything up inside of your system. You can, using prompts, tell him, this is what I want. I know you're good at this. Do it. I'd probably let the confirmation happen though, just to make sure you've got everything coming out on the back end the way you want it. And finally, he can help you access some articles and things like that. He cannot help you access articles and things like that. That is through our support option. So we have a bot for that. Her name is Stella. You find her under your support icon in the top right corner of your screen. She will help you out with any of the support articles, information that you need along those lines. Haven't seen any questions pop up, but I'm sure that you guys are going to have some eventually. So go ahead and send those in to us. Moving down into the mental model. So how do we talk to Mason? This is kind of a big question. A lot of us have sort of been learning on our own for the last couple of years of how we prompt AI to get the best information. Well, we want to be on the project and we want to kind of start with the outcome. We want to make sure that we give Mason the goal. Is my goal to make a to-do list? Is my goal to search through this information and draft a message? We need to make sure that we present that to him rather than just giving him, unclear goals. If not, he's never going to get to the objective if we don't tell him what that is, right? So we want to make sure that we provide constraints on the prompt. Date range is a good one. Ask Mason what changed, throughout April. Customer facing versus internal. We can check on things like that. Cost codes and categories. There's a lot of things where We want to make sure that we say, hey, Mason, if you're looking at daily logs, I need you to check everything that's visible to the customer. Or I need you to review the internal logs to make sure that everything that's inside of those internal logs is accurate, at least to the dates and times and who put those logs in. You can also ask for next step outputs, to-do list, checklist, message drafts, summaries like that. So we can set our goal. We can have Mason say, pull the action items out of this transcript for me. And then we can tell him to turn all of those action items into a to-do list. We can even tell him to assign people to those individual items as well. We've got a couple example prompts down here. Feel free to jump in and give a couple of these a shot, but we're going to take a live demo anyway. But what approvals are pending and what's blocking us? This is a question that you can ask it and say, well, hey, we've got a bunch of purchase orders that aren't signed, so we haven't ordered materials on this, right? What are the next tasks or next 10 tasks in the schedule and who's assigned? We can get that kind of information as well. We can even have him create punch lists with checklist items for a bathroom, final inspection. We can have all of this added to the to-dos too. We're going to move in. We're going to do some live demos. Demo E that you may see down in the bottom right, we are going to do that actually live. We're going to have Mason do the prompting and things like that. The other 4 demos I've kind of queued up for us to make it a little bit easier and save us some time. So in just a moment here. So the first demo, instant project status without hunting. Well, what we're going to ask Mason is to give us scheduling highlights, open to-dos, recent daily logs, and a summary. And I'll show you what that's going to look like in a second. Demonstration B is going to be approvals and change management, asking him to find what approvals we're waiting on. C, we want to know where we're over and under on the project. Are we pacing above in our actuals for a specific area? What are these projections looking like for us? Finally, we're going to take a look at turning that field chaos into clear action. So we're going to paste in some rough notes and have Mason make us a quick punch list for it. And then finally, the last one I'm going to show you is how we can do things with setting up our own internal inspections and checklists using Mason and kind of making sure that that information comes out the way we want it at the end. All that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out this window for a moment. And let's jump over to our first example. So remember demo A. I've got Mason loaded for demo A right here. So we asked him for his schedule highlights, the open to-dos, recent daily log summary. So what has changed this week? So he pulled out all of my scheduling highlights, letting me know what has been completed and that I'm moving into the installation phase of my job starting on May 5th. Got a couple open to-dos here. One's assigned to Andy. He's got to get that taken care of by the 30th, so it's coming up. And then I have one assigned to me that I don't have a due date. So I might want to even check up on that, make sure that I put a due date on that to follow through on what I'm supposed to be finishing up on. Then I've got some recent daily log summaries. So what changed? Well, it pulled in from our daily logs that the final inspection passed, the deep cleaning passed, the minor punch list items were noted. And then on April 27th, sort of the same thing. We completed our punch list, that kind of stuff. Bringing in all of those changes based off of a very small prompt. We've got a ton of information about what's going on our job. Let's move over to the next one. Just for a quick reminder, our next one is going to be approvals and change management. So our next example, I said, show me what's waiting approval and what it impacts. So what I've got awaiting approval, I've got a couple selections that have been released. Well, I can even get these links and go directly to those selections and move straight into, any action that I need to based off of the information Mason's given me. I've got my change orders. So the scope and cost authorization, well, it was released on actually this morning. So I've got a pending change. I need to get somebody to make sure that they're getting this approved. Procurement and commitments, my purchase orders, that's still out in limbo. What it's impacting, it's giving me a little bit of information about that. I've got some bids hanging out. Notice he's giving me a lot of information about the job with a single sentence. I can see my selections, my change orders, my procurement, everything without ever going to a different page. Our third example, estimate and budget questions. Basically, where am I over and under on this job? So what did Mason give me? So what outstanding selections are delaying accurate projections? One of the questions that I asked him, well, the outstanding selections, so still in draft, big drivers of variance. Well, I don't know what I am going to see when they actually make these picks. So I need to get these draft selections out to the client, make sure that they are getting their selections into me so that I can start getting accurate projections as we move into the next phases of the job. I've got a couple completed selections as well down here, showing me their allowances, and I've got links as well. I can click on any of these links and it will take me right over to that item so that I can keep moving through this process if this is where I need to be making an update. For our fourth demonstration, we just wanted to turn field chaos into some clear actions. So I took this little quick prompt in here and asked it to make me a punch list. So right up here at the top, make a punch list for the following items: the door sticks, touch-up paint, cracked tile, missing GFCI label. Well, he gives me this punch list draft. I have an individual to do for each one of these items, giving me checklist items to take care of those. And this is what we were talking about when we were bringing up clarifying questions. Mason will jump in and kind of make sure that you have everything that you need and that he has the information to give you the best output on the other side. So some of his questions that came out, well, do you want this punch list to be organized by room? Do you want it organized by trade? Do you want me to turn this into a trackable to-dos in your project system? Or, check boxes and or with checkboxes and owners and all assignees and things like that. Or just keep it as a written punch list. Well, let's give Mason a couple answers and he's going to keep going with this process. So, quick questions. What are we doing here? Well, I do want it. Let's take it by trade. Organize by trade. I can type it out, but I like to just hit the shift and enter and go to a next line for my second question. Do you want me to turn this into to-dos? Yes. Please create one to-do list with to-dos by trade. And I can send this information based off of what I've just told him. He's going to start getting to work on getting this list organized for exactly what I want. So depending on the cues and what you prompted Mason to do, it can take a varying amount of time. If we're just looking for some quick answers, very fast, very easy for him to generate a message to a vendor or something along those lines. But what was it? Maybe 45 seconds of me talking, and that's kind of being generous. He was able to switch that punch list for me. So I should be able to click on my punch list and head over to my to-dos where I now have a punch list inside of here with the carpentry work. Well, the door sticks. I need him to check all of these items. I can even jump down here and assign it. I could tell Mason to assign it to that vendor in the prompt, but he built all of this out for me just based off of me saying, I have a few issues I saw on the job. I've even seen field users take their mobile phone, open up Mason, speak out their issues, and tell Mason at the end, make a to-do list for all of these issues so that I can follow up. Let me know. I don't see any questions popping in yet, but I'm going to move into our final kind of live prompt for Mason so that you guys can see this in action without going through a bunch of windows. So I'm going to use my same project here. And what I want to do is I want to structure my own internal inspection because pretty much every one of you guys are going to go down and inspect the work that's done before you call the city to do their inspections, before you get any of that stuff passed. It's a good way to make sure that we're not going to pay an inspector to show up on the site before we need them. So if I wanted to structure something like that, this is especially great, basically for any user type. But what I'll do is I'm going to pop down here. I'm going to give Mason a new conversation. So once I've got that new conversation starts, and I'll be even extra polite to him. Hey, Mason, can you make me an MEP inspection to-do list with to-dos and checklist items? Keep it general. I want to use this as a template on future jobs. So I've given him a goal. I said, this is what I want you to make. I gave him a little bit of criteria. Keep it general. And then I told him, hey, I want to use this on future jobs, so we don't need to get too specific. I can send this over to Mason, and he'll get to work on this. So I keep checking for questions. I'm not seeing any questions. I was hoping to have a couple questions to answer while I let Mason build this list out for me. So if anybody's got any questions you want to pop into that Q&A area, I would love to hear them right now. If not, again, we're going to be going to a Q&A section at the end. And if we don't have too many questions, if everything's really straightforward and intuitive, awesome. That's what we want to hear all the time anyway. So he should be giving me my draft any second now. I did ask him for quite a big list. So that's what I was saying. When You give him a really big scope of work. It does take him a little bit longer to put it together, but imagine if you had to put this entire inspection checklist together on your own. All the thought, all the preparation, all the typing and clicking, Mason does all of that for me now. So what does he set up for me? Well, I've got a to-do list named MEP inspections, and it's labeled as a template because we're going to be using this on other jobs. He's going to set up every one of these numbered areas is going to be its own to-do with the follow-up checklist so that people can move through these as well. So this is a really expansive list. You guys can always cut these down before you even have him put it in there. You can say, we don't need the inspection day correction closeout portion of this or something like that. But he did give me a couple questions at the top, which he has pointed out that I need to answer before we get this complete. So let's see what Mason asked me for some clarification. Do you want this template aimed at rough-in inspections, final inspections, or both? Well, I'm probably going to tell him rough-in inspections in this case. And should I include fireplace gas, low voltage, insulation, things like that? Well, I really just want to focus on the electrical, the HVAC, and the plumbing. So let's tell him not to include these extra items, but we're going to aim this at our rough-in inspections. Pretty simple. Rough-in inspections, please. Only include HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. And this gives you the opportunity to kind of clarify a little bit of the stuff that you're doing with Mason and get that sent in. So he'll take a little bit of that information, go back, refine what he's got going on. He'll present it to me again and ask me to confirm. And once I've confirmed it, he'll build all of this list inside of my job for me. So he's jumped in. And like I said, if this looks right, reply confirm. So I take a few seconds to review. He's cut this list down to make sure it focuses on only the things I wanted him to focus on. And I can tell him confirm. He'll get to work building this list out for me. And now I have a rough framing, a rough electrical, plumbing, and HVAC inspection that my team can run on any job whenever they need to. And he built the template out for me within a matter of minutes. Look like we've got some questions coming in. So we don't have a whole lot of questions. I'm going to go ahead and jump down and take a look at this question live.
It's a good question. I like the way, yeah.
Does Mason have more slash better specific construction knowledge than another general AI would? Would using Mason to draft a list like you just did result in a better product than doing the same thing in ChatGPT? That is a really, really good question. Now, one of the biggest advantages that Mason is going to have over just trying to do that list in ChatGPT is I get Mason to create it for me. It's now going to be inside of my project. And ChatGPT is not going to be doing that for you. Another thing that makes Mason a little bit separate, let's kind of take a look at the list he was able to generate for me. All the checklist items. I can go back and tell him at any time. I can pull this list into a new job and tell Mason to assign this list to the correct project manager on that job if I needed to. So ChatGPT won't be able to do certain things like that. Another thing that kind of makes Mason a little bit different is Mason is not built off of a single AI model. Mason is actually plugged into a couple different AI models. You can see some of the models that we have in here that you can that you're actually being used or that you're actually using. So Mason is basically a group of all of those models getting information from everywhere, and basically being able to check that information against other models as we're putting it in. So I would say that utilizing Mason is probably going to give you a little bit of a head start rather than trying to start with ChatGPT. That being said, though, if you have an AI bot or an AI agent that you've trained yourself, cue him to give you the checklist and then paste the checklist into Mason and tell Mason to make it for you. You've already verified it through your other AI, and all you want is Mason to just drop it in the project, and he can handle that in spades, no problem. Any
Yeah,
other
and I would
questions that
even
we have
add
related to
to
that?
Brian that it's specific to that project, right? So when you pull up that project and ask it questions, it's pulling the information from that project.
That is a very good point. You don't actually have to take Mason or like ChatGPT. You would have to get your data, drop it into ChatGPT, then have ChatGPT analyze the data, come to some findings, return that information to you when Mason can just take the prompt right there in Ressio without you ever having to navigate away. All right. That's part of the demo portion. Let's jump back over to the slides. We've got some tips and tricks that we want to go over, and then we're going to jump into some more Q&A. So tips and tricks, best practices. Well, start with the outcome, like we were saying. Give it the goal. What do we want you to do, Mason? Then add that context, give it date range, give it location, give it the cost category that we're trying to look at on the estimate of the cost code. You can ask it to format things for you. If you want a bullet, you can do it. You can tell it like I did. I told him to make checklists for me on my to-do list. He can handle all of those things. Iterate on it like I did. He's going to ask you clarifying questions to make sure that you get to the best information and the best answers that you can possibly get to. So make sure that you give him that kind of information. You can even tell Mason, like, hey, I want you to keep this to 10,000 characters or less. You can give him a word prompt and say, you get 1,000 words to explain this and you're done. He'll work with that stuff. And then again, confirm before sharing or posting. Always make sure that whatever you're putting into Mason, you give it a second to review and make sure that he did give you the right outcome. We are still working with AI models. They are still a little bit new, and Mason pulls from a few areas. You guys might not do a specific type of work that Mason thinks that you guys may need to have on your checklist. And even then, if Mason builds a checklist out for you or something along those lines, you have full edit capability once he's dropped it into your system anyway. You can always remove those checklists, change, update those checklists in the future, but he gets you a big head start in a lot of those areas. So here's a couple prompts to try, and I'm curious. So I have a question for everybody. Have you tried any of the prompts as we're here? What results did you guys get? Throw that into the Q&A. We're happy to kind of talk about that as well. Couple prompts to try though. What are the top priorities this week? What's overdue or at risk on my schedule? Things like that. Summarize the daily logs from last week. That's a great one to review, especially if you're the owner and you're just trying to reach in and see if your project managers are taking care of everything that they should be. Do what I did. Ask him to make you a checklist or an inspection list or a punch list for you. All of those are great to work with.
And I forgot to mention in the beginning, everyone, before you leave, when we end this, there will be a survey that pops up. So please, if you do try something and you don't have a chance to comment, please, let us know in the survey how it went. And we also love hearing your suggestions for future CS office hours. So I forgot to mention that in the beginning that when we end this, a survey will pop up and we'll go in the email as well.
I think I've left some of the test prompts up here. I see another question flowing in. Caitlin's going to grab that one for us. If we need to do some more, we can talk about it. But we are now at the Q&A area. And I was expecting a big list from everybody to ask me some questions. So I'd love to hear from everyone or anyone if you've got some things you'd like to talk about. While everybody kind of thinks of any more questions that they might have, and we're all busy people here, Marie, why don't I go ahead and turn it back over to you to give out some of that closing information, let everybody digest the information that they got. We can return to Q&A briefly before we close out the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah, so I'm about to pull up my screen as well, but if you guys are trying things on the side, please continue to do that. And if questions pop up as I'm talking, that works as well. So let me get to this.
While you're talking, Marie, I'll make sure that I help with the question side as
Sounds
well.
good. All right. Okay. As I was saying, we do have our next CS Office Hour best practices on accounting and financing already. It's already set to go. You can find that under the events section in the community forum. I'll speak about that in just a moment. But that will also go out in the next release notes. So I'll have the registration in there as well. So keep an eye on that. So it's for Thursday, May 28th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Zach from Ressio, who I know a lot of you have had him as your customer success coach, and then Melissa from Terraquant Builder Services. She's one of our partners, and you can find her on our partner section on our website. Um, you can register for that, and I think it's going to be a great accounting and financing. And as goes for all of our best practices office hours, it's going to be accounting and financing and Ressio one-on-one. So I really hope that you guys all can join us. Please fill out the survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar, and then we'll go out in the thank you email for coming to the webinar. This recording will go up on YouTube. So if you want to watch this again, share it with people on your team, you can do that. I'm going to try and get that up today, if not tomorrow morning. Um, and our YouTube channel, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's got, we always put up our feature releases videos on there. It's categorized by PMs. You can, if you are a leader and you just want to see what's dedicated to you, if you're a field user, you can also look at those videos. Um, so yeah, that's our YouTube, and then the community forum. You can see the picture of our community forum down here on the bottom. That is a great place for you guys to come in and connect with other builders. Not only, I don't know if you can see on the events, there's a events section. I try and keep that updated as much as I can with the upcoming webinars, events. That's where also we're going to post the ResioCon in October in Washington, D.C. But you will also have, the discussion. I actually just saw a discussion that was posted today by one of our builders, and the other builders are taking part and adding their 2 cents. So I think it's a great way for you guys to be connected. If you don't know where the community forum is, it is through your app, but you can always reach out to me. I will add you if you are not added. So you can get through it to Ressio. And as always, if you have any further questions or need dig deeper into something, reach out to your customer success coach or your CSM, as well as look at the help center. We have a lot of great articles in there. So, and always feel free to reach out to me. I can always help you guys out as well. I don't know if Brian or Kaitlin, if you want to add anything to this list I might have missed.
I was looking at one of those questions,
That's
so let me
fine.
just take a
That's fine.
quick review. Best practices on accounting survey.
And I
Yeah,
hope
I'm
everyone's
waiting to hear
trying.
that. Oh, yeah, further questions, please make sure that you contact your CS coach. You don't have to reach out to them right away. Just keep this as a bug in your ear. If you want to bring up how you can utilize Mason, that's a great conversation to have with both your customer success coach or for those of you who have moved in and are working with your CSM. Excellent conversation. It's great for expansion on how we can use Mason to kind of make things work a little quicker or make the lives easier of our field team.
And it looks like people are putting a couple questions. We had Mitch pop in there about I'll say this live, I might as well. When the ability for Mason to see across multiple projects anticipated, for example, what are my 5 best margin projects over the last 6 months? Great question by Russell. And Mitch mentioned, we'll have that later in Q2. So stay tuned for that. As you guys could probably tell, we are releasing, a lot. But thank you for the questions. And keep trying it in Mason. I can go back to some prompts if people want to try. Here's some prompts to try. I'll keep those up for you guys.
Oops. Any best practices?
Good question.
That is a really good question. I'm going to go ahead and field that one live. Kaitlin and Mitch are asking or handling the other question at the moment. So, are there any best practices I should be mindful of when building out a project that will maximize Mason's abilities? Um, Honestly, there's a lot of really small things that will make sure that what Mason's looking at is giving you the best answers. So think trying not to have anything that looks like it could be a duplicate line on your estimate. If we have some builders, they kind of build things in some weird ways, and some lines look very close to each other. So making sure that there's a delineation in different areas is going to be really helpful. Descriptions. Some of the description information that you put on your cost lines, that can also be helpful, especially if Mason's trying to outline certain things. Um, honestly, though,
What's listed here too is
really good
good
with
when
them.
yeah, the best practices on the thing.
Yeah, like honestly, if you're prompting him correctly, um, and you're giving him all of the criteria that he's going to need to get you the best answers, he should be able to pull anything. And then when you're starting to see those answers, it may expose something that you may not have thought was an issue before, but is kind of like, oh, well, I might be able to get a better answer if I do something a slightly different way. But realistically, I think it's just making sure that you follow the tips for getting the best prompts into Mason. Um, Other than that, I don't think you need to change a lot about your day-to-day process with pretty much anything. He's just plugged into what you're already doing. Looks like the questions are starting to slow down, but we've got quite a few people who've got their answers. I went ahead and answered this question live, so that was taken care of. If we've got any other questions, I would love to give you guys a little bit more time to ask them, but we're probably going to go ahead and wrap this up and get a few minutes back into everyone's day. So let's go ahead and give a 2-minute warning on questions that you'd like answered live with us right now. If not, if you think of a question later on, we'll get you to reach out to your CSC. You can shoot us an email to support. We'll make sure it gets directed to the correct spot.
I also recommend, if you have a question about masons, shoot it through the community forum because there are some builders I know that weren't here that use Mason AI really successfully in their day to day. So yeah, throw it out in the community forum and see what other builders are doing.
While we're waiting on that 2-minute warning to end, I do want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to hang out with us and talk a little bit about Mason. I'll remind you again, any questions, get them to us, whether you send them to support, you talk about it in the community, or you talk about it with your customer success coach or manager. We want to hear these questions. We want to hear the feedback. We want to hear your use cases. We want to know how you're using Mason, and what successes that you're seeing and what feedback that you have so that we can continue to improve the product and make it the best AI project assistant that you can possibly have. Um, so from the from me, from Mitch, from Kaitlin, from Marie, we all thank you very much for taking some time out to hang out with us. Um, Love to hear from you. Keep an eye out. We did record this webinar. You guys should be getting a survey, a link to the recording, and the webinar will also be posted on YouTube so that you're going to be able to go back and check that out or share it with other people who may be wanting to jump in and work with Mason there. And while you're on YouTube, if you're checking out this webinar again, feel free to check out a bunch of our playlists. There are a lot of playlists on working with Mason or Ressio for field users and things like that that can be very helpful to the team. So find them, use them, share them, ask us for them, and make sure that you get all the answers that you need.
Thank you,
Anybody
everyone. We
else?
really appreciate you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Caitlin.
everybody.